All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Squanch, Wisecrack's Rick and Morty podcast. My name is Jared, and as always, I'm joined here with the Squanchers. We got Ryan.
Wubba wubba, how's it going? Good morning on a Tuesday here, everybody.
And we got Alec.
Hey.
And today we're talking about Rick and Morty Season 4, Episode 9, Childrick of Mort. As always, we're going to go around and get everyone's first impressions. What did we think about this episode? Let's start. We've been starting with Ryan lately. Let's start with Alec this time.
Makes me feel very unloved. I really like this episode, not even for any smart reason. I think I just really like the premise. Sometimes, you know, good sci-fi premise.
A lot of Jerry.
A lot of Jerry. Love Jerry. I also love the family dynamic happening. But just the clay people and the fucking of planets. A-. Certainly not the greatest episode, but I had a lot of fun.
All right, solid. What do you think, Ryan?
I was gonna go around A-, maybe even A+. I mean, if I'm feeling a little generous. I love this episode. I really love this season, dude. This has been a great half season so far. Like, this was just another solid Rick and Morty episode. We kind of like what you were saying last week. I want to say we got a lot more of the family. The family is back in a big way. We like 2/3 of the way through the episode, I was like, wow, they're doing a great job sticking with every member of the family for a nice chunk of the episode. Everyone had their good A, B, and C plot, and I thought it was a really well structured and well written episode. It definitely gave me Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 vibes, just in the whole we're fucking a planet concept premise, you know, which I did not like that movie, but this was like the best fucking a planet storyline I've ever seen in my life. This was amazing.
Are there others, like, besides
Guardians? I can't think of any others.
You gotta make that a genre.
Yeah, it's a genre. But
that was like when Ryan and I saw Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole at midnight, and we were like, that was the best owl movie I've ever seen.
That's true. Yeah, we got a lot of Jerry.
How many other owl movies are there?
Zero. They were so mean to Jerry this episode. At first, I was taken aback. I was like, what is going on with Jerry? Do they really hate him now? You know, but I thought that he came back and had a nice little arc there that I feel like we've kind of seen before. Haven't we seen Jerry become the leader of a cult or clan before, and everyone worship him? Am I crazy?
There's the Plutonian. Is that what they're called? Where he becomes like a science denier.
That's right. Yeah, there's the Plutonians, and there's the one there's like the Chuck E. Cheese's for all Jerrys, where he's kind of
the leader of the Jerrys.
The leader of the Jerrys there. So, okay, yeah. I feel like I like when Jerry gets put in a position where he is the smartest of some group of people, and he gets to feel like he's a badass. That's always a fun arc. Anyway, great episode.
He's even given godlike powers in this episode.
Yeah, and I guess
comes up with the dumbest catchphrase. Was it like "boom shabop" or something?
Yeah. Oh yes, totally lame. I love this episode too. I thought that, just to echo Ryan's point, we were mostly getting episodes with just an A plot up until this point, or at least for this half of the season, but this has an A, B, and C plot that are all fleshed out just as much as we need them to be. Yeah. And just enough to be really funny. I mean, we've got, Morty and Summer just wanting to play video games and get high, and getting high and playing video games ends up saving Rick's life. We've got Beth, of course, wanting the approval of her father who abandoned her, and we've got Jerry just trying desperately to have some sort of function in life, and he kind of finds it with his basket of unproductives. And I thought it was a great episode, man. I thought it was really funny. I'm really happy to talk about it. So let's go into a quick recap. So Jerry is bringing the Smith family on a camping trip when Rick gets a text that he has impregnated a planet. Not wanting the children of the planet to be abandoned like she was, Beth insists they go to planet Gaia and raise the kids. Gaia births thousands of clay people, whom Rick and Beth start organizing into a civilization, while Morty and Summer reluctantly camp with Jerry. While on a walk, Jerry accidentally stumbles into the discarded, unproductive clay people dump and convinces them to camp with him, which turns into Jerry lording over a primitive society. Meanwhile, Summer and Morty happen upon a wrecked ship with a space bong full of alien mist. Beth and Rick celebrate the perfection of their society when a deity in the sky comes to the planet and insists that he is the father of the clay people, but Rick won't give them up. When Jerry comes to confront Rick, the deity possesses Jerry and his campers with his powers, and Rick ascends to the sky to fight the sky god. Morty and Summer, high as fuck, fly the spaceship right into the god's temple, killing him and saving Rick. As Space God falls to Gaia, making a volcano erupt and annihilating most of the clay people, in the wreckage, Jerry saves Beth's life, and Rick picks them all up in a spaceship and flies back home. End of episode. Oh, I forgot the after credits part where Rick is looking at some online porn that's for planets only, which is pretty hilarious.
Yeah, split up my Pangea, baby.
Yeah. First thing, not necessarily thematic or anything, but were you guys a little bit surprised that, usually when we see Rick fight anything or be challenged by anything, any defeat or anything nearing a defeat that he experiences is usually undercut by him not actually trying his hardest. But in this case, he actually seems to be bested by the god before Morty and Summer save him. Did that surprise you guys?
I didn't know where they were going with that, because obviously Rick is like super tiny compared to this giant Zeus god in the sky, and so you think that they're going to undercut that and be like, okay, how is he going to have some giant spacesuit that makes him the size of 4 Empire State Buildings or something? Like, how is he going to... But then they just start fist fighting. Oh yeah, because he talks him into shrinking down, right?
Right.
Which was a kind of a weird moment. Like, why would the guy who's 4 times the size of this Empire State Building shrink down to get on his level for a fair fight, So that was weird. And then, when they just start fighting, I'm kind of like waiting for that moment that you're talking about, where Rick comes out and goes, okay, actually, this is all part of my big evil plan. But that didn't seem to be happening. And I don't really know what they were trying to do with that, unless they just wanted Rick wanted to beat up a god.
I was surprised because, I think the usual answer would be Rick to use his scientific prowess to summon some giant space mecha and like launch lasers at Zeus. Mm-hmm. But it surprised me, but I think it makes sense because it's like both of them are defending their manhood, and it's like, come on, a good old bout of fisticuffs,
Gotcha.
A fair fight, and without that, they can't like defend their manhood.
Okay, so that actually makes a lot of sense. What were you gonna say?
Well, there's also that, but I think it really works well in closing up the C plot in kind of the classic Rick and Morty cynicism, in that Summer wants to do drugs at a party and all Morty wants to do is play video games, and it's their proclivities to get high and game that saves Rick in the end, because Summer smokes the alien mist and Morty flies the ship like a video game, which kills the god.
Yeah, that was also kind of a weird moment too, because this is such a well-written show, and they clearly did not mean to do that. That was a total Deus Ex Machina or whatever accident on their part, which was funny, a good moment. I love that moment when the god is just like talking, and then he's like, ugh! And then you can tell something went into his brain and killed him. But, that was pretty convenient, obviously.
Yeah, but again, as long as the Deus Ex Machina is funny, then I think it works.
Yeah, I also think it's like the really bad Deus Ex Machinas are literally out of thin air. Like, surprise, here's this thing you didn't even know existed. At least, we know that they're fucking up this spaceship.
Yeah. You guys want to talk...
Chekhov's spaceship? Sorry.
Oh, speaking of these kind of... You mentioned Chekhov's spaceship. There's another possible reference that I wanted to run by you guys. So at one point when Summer and Morty are entering the spaceship for the first time and they see all the dead people, he says they probably drove through a nebula that made them see their own fears. Is this a reference to a particular sci-fi film? Because the one that entered my mind was Tarkovsky's Solaris. Because isn't that what happens in that movie?
I've only seen the Soderbergh version and I fucking hated it. So
oh my god, I've never seen the Soderbergh version.
Is George Clooney in that?
The Soderbergh version, yeah.
I think I have seen it, and I do think that might be right, but I also hated it and don't remember it. But I think you're right.
Yeah, I've only seen the Tarkovsky version, but they definitely fly through a nebula that seems to alter the fabric of reality in some way. Like there's a guy that sees his wife. I don't know if it's exactly his fears, but if anyone knows if they're referencing a different sci-fi movie, please send us a line.
I also feel like it's probably a Star Trek episode, but only because like every premise like this has been done by Star Trek.
And we know that some of the main writers are big Star Trek fans.
Yeah.
You guys want to talk about camping?
Oh, I love camping.
Yeah, let's talk about camping, but can I ask a dumb question?
Yes.
Please.
It's actually maybe not dumb. So when they're like doing the pipelines of the lawyers skip the ethics thing, so they're spineless enough to do their jobs, there's something about there's too many English teachers, so they have to do some playwright work around. And
They have to, they get spanked.
So is the idea that if you have a good English teacher, you won't become a playwright, so you have to be like abused?
I think it's just the idea that, yeah, like playwrights are these like supposed to be tortured souls of English majors or something, so they have to get spanked a little bit and abused, and then they become playwrights. I think is how it came off to me.
Right. I think I was just confused that the overabundance of English teachers means that you have to like up the spanking.
Jared,
yeah, no, that whole section where they're saying it's like, oh, what do we do with the unproductibles? Well, we can send them through the line that brings them to online education, or we could just send them out the back. Same thing.
I mean, I got that joke. That was funny.
I was getting big Sims and Minecraft vibes when they're building the town and figuring out how to make those little machines and stuff. Maybe I've been playing too much Minecraft lately, but there's like, you get into that mode where you're like, okay, if I make this machine and have this circuit go here and I bring all these people here, you're like making. It was like they were talking like it was a video game, and it was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's this thing that I think I've talked about in a different episode of this podcast where there are certain kind of people that just can't wait for the apocalypse to happen because in our current society, they are completely superfluous or they're just not useful or not productive. But during the apocalypse, they have all these skills that would be, really useful. And this episode doesn't quite talk about that, but Summer accuses Jerry of taking them camping in order to lower the bar to such an extent that he seems important. And in a way, because Jerry is so useless in your everyday society, he tries to bring everybody down to a level to where he seems like he knows something. But then there's an interesting part where the Sky God says that the people that Beth and Rick have raised are soft and empty inside because they have no sense of spirituality. Whereas Jerry's campers worship Jerry as a god, and camping is like some sort of gospel. And I don't know. Do you think that there's anything more to say about that?
I think that there's something to be said in terms of the camping aspect of how, like, I like that Jerry is so civilized or whatever, or lives in a society that's so civilized that camping is this novelty, and he's teaching it to these savage people that like he thinks that like, oh, this is how you should live because you're like these idiots that like are from hundreds of years ago. And so he's trying to teach them camping, but really they just want to be civilized as much as possible, and they don't like the moment at the end when he shows them the lighter. And they're like, you had that the whole time? Are you kidding me? There's something to be said, I think, for just how that mindset in America of just, we got to go really live and rough it and not go in society because that's, there's something spiritual about that.
Jerry says, like, the roughing of it shall commence, or something like that. But he wants to feel important, and the only way he can do that is by, lording over these unproductives that are, in a lot of ways, very much like him. I mean, he gets funneled out of the same tube of unproductives as the rest of them, and in a sense, it makes him have a sense of purpose that he's able to teach these people how to roast marshmallows, how to make a s'more, and in a strange way, in their primitive society that isn't as advanced and industrialized as Beth and Rick's, he is quite productive.
Well, right. I guess that's kind of the point I was trying to make a second ago. Was that it looks like you're not being productive by just going out and camping, but a lot of people think that that's the ultimate, like you really know how to be productive because you can actually live without all this stuff, all these tools that make our life easier. You're the real man, kind of like the Rick and Zeus subplot that they were trying to go for. And yeah, I think it was just kind of an ironic choice that they made, that they took all these quote unproductive people, made Jerry the king of them, and then taught them how to do this, task that is not necessarily needed in today's society.
I think it's similar to, well, two things. One is there's the Cronenberg Jerry and we've talked about this, like stripped of all the niceties of civilization, Jerry in the Cronenberg world becomes like, this hero, manly man, whatever. But also in the, I'm just going to call it the Mad Max episode. Is that like the season 3 premiere? You know what I'm talking about, Jared?
It's the second episode of season 3.
There's like essentially like they're living in the post-apocalypse and everyone kind of like has this kind of agency, but then they get civilization and they start like bickering about bullshit. But I think the sort of underlying thing is that civilization kind of removes our agency. We become kind of cogs in the machine, which is very Rick and Morty-esque. And so like someone like Jerry is generally completely useless in this scheme and has no sense of worth or agency or anything like that. And the only thing he can do is teach people to roast a marshmallow 6 inches away until golden brown. So
because the carbon will hurt you.
Yeah, the carbon will. I wonder if that's true because
I've heard it's true. I don't know if it's true.
But like,
yeah,
how
that's
bad
true
for you?
Well, I mean, not that bad. But
should I stop eating burnt food? Because anyway, so yeah, I mean, they've done it before, but I also enjoyed it here. And I also just loved the camping song. I love that Dan Harmon, I think, is singing it. Well, there's a new thing going around. People sleeping on the ground. It's fun to do when we're not doing it. And and if it's fun to do, then we're not doing it. And that's called camping.
They've been killing it with the songs lately.
Yeah.
They had this one, and then they had the one in the Prometheus episode. That was great.
Yeah.
I see both of them, both their treatment of camping and their treatment of society, as just extremely cynical, which, of course, is the Rick and Morty MO. But with society, of course, like, it's just taking the mechanisms of how people evolve psychologically and just tearing it down to its, like, most cynical bits and pieces, like them talking about, why are we allowing the athletes to go to the science nerds? It's like, oh, well, so the athletes will beat them up and it turn them into astronomers. And Alec already mentioned the joke about lawyers needing to be spineless enough to actually do their job. Yeah, it's it doesn't seem like a very, I guess my question to you guys is which society would you rather live in, the camping society or the industrialized society?
Industrialized.
I think the real trick,
but you don't get to choose your function in life.
I'll find some way to break the system down and bend it to my will.
Ooh, you're going against a man who can almost kill a god. That's
well,
okay.
I think the real solution, and this has actually been written about in like the kind of like return to nature movement. I think people like Teddy Roosevelt and like this has been going on for a while. You have your kind of, quote unquote overstressed modern man who like works in a factory or now like an office job, and like the city's not good for you, so you got to like go in the woods and like rejuvenate yourself. And I mean that still exists. That's what literally all my friends do, and me. I'm like, get me in the fucking woods right now. But anyway. The point that the literature makes is like this is like a necessary component of modern capitalism, is that like you have to like for all that you're like destroying people, you have to sort of build them back up in like different ways. But anyway, like I'm cool with it. Or I guess what I'm saying is I enjoy camping. And so like I don't want to be homeless and I don't want to camp forever.
Yeah.
But listen, get me in a fucking tent. Get me out of New York City right fucking now. Yeah,
So
but
what
also
you're
I think
saying-
it's.
what you're
I mean,
saying is that the societies need to come together, and the people and the campers need to basically just have guided camping trips for the burnt out people in the industrialized society.
yeah, because when everything is so easy and you can order Seamless and do this and that, you're like, yeah, I'll make my own fucking fire. Whereas if you've been doing that the whole time, you're like, no, please just give me a goddamn lighter.
Yeah.
It is rich because I think Dan Harmon on his Instagram posts about like the woodworking he does or something like that, and like that's the perfect example of like, well, you could just buy a table, or you could like spend hundreds of hours making this table.
There's also one other thing in this episode that we haven't mentioned that I actually quite liked, and that is that when Rick is off fighting the space god, he quote unquote abandons Beth again because I guess it's Jerry's plagues that he starts wreaking upon the civilization, has her almost falling into a pit, and it's Jerry that ultimately saves her. And so Beth ultimately learns that no matter how much approval I get from my dad, he still is this narcissist who would rather, prove himself to be more powerful than a god than make sure his daughter is safe. And so with all these things happening in this episode, with this A, B, and C plot all coming together, I guess this is, God, what plot would you call this? Like the D plot almost, but it just wraps together really nicely. And then when on the car ride home, you see Beth going back into Jerry's camp and Rick getting really butthurt about it and starts throwing Summer and Morty under the bus, saying how high they've gotten and stuff like that. Yeah. It's a really nice moment. Mm-hmm. Anything else you guys want to bring up about the episode?
I think the movie we're thinking out was Event Horizon.
We saw Edward in the comments. Thank you for saying that.
Oh, okay, so not Solaris.
Someone in the people in the comments are talking about it.
Well, someone said Solaris is about your desires, which does sound familiar, like your desires manifest.
Yeah, because the guy sees his wife manifest, so I guess it would make more sense that it's his desires than his fears.
Thank
you for that. I've actually not seen Event Horizon.
It sucks. Paul W.S. Anderson's, probably his best movie, but that is not saying anything.
Last episode, there was what Jared was weirdly unconvinced was a South Park reference. One of these I think might be intentional, and one of them I think I'm wearing a tinfoil hat. So, I think this was more in earlier seasons. There's like a specific bird call that's always when the kids are at the bus stop in South Park. This is in that episode. And maybe it's just like a common bird that people put in, or it's like from the same library. But that's my tinfoil hat. The one that I think is not that is Summer inhales the brake fluid and says, "I think we got this, bro." Doesn't Towley say that?
I mean, maybe, but really the only Towley line that's iconic that would really tie it to him directly is, "I have no idea what's going on."
Yeah, I mean, the whole premise of like, I'm going to get high and try to fix something is just very Towley.
There's no way that they are doing an extended South Park reference across multiple episodes. It's
Towley, man.
We didn't mention either that last week's episode when they were doing that South Park section in the plane was also, we never mentioned the movie Alive, the soccer, the soccer team that has to eat themselves on the mountain. It's a direct Alive reference, basically.
Yeah, I saw an email about that.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. Have you seen that, Ryan?
Oh yeah, it's a good movie. I mean, that was a big '80s hit.
Yeah,
go see Alive. Terrifying.
I've seen the Dead Alive. That's a fucking movie.
Oh well, now that is a movie, baby. Yeah, well, that's a different thing altogether.
All right. Anything else before we dive into some voicemails?
I love the moment when Rick is like, "I want to see my generation ship meet the rock children," or something. Do you know what I'm talking about? When his civilization had progressed enough to where they were shooting off into space, and he was just like sitting around being like, and he called it his generation ship. That made me laugh. Anyone else? No? Okay. And then the fog dude cracked me up.
I like You Look Like Kid Rock Fuck Zeus.
Yeah, that was great.
I did appreciate. I think most people caught on some level, but like Gaia is the Greek goddess Earth, whatever. But I guess in the myth, there's like an egg that splits, and the bottom half is Earth, and the top half is sky. And so it's Gaia and Uranus, and so Zeus is like a cloud. I don't know about that, but also like clay people is a big creation myth thing, including like making humans out of clay, and also just like Zeus in Greek mythology is always like changing forms to like fuck people.
Well, and he's also like this absent father figure, so the fact that he just comes in when it's first of all, he comes in way after the children have been born, and then he says to Rick right before he's defeated, he's like, you think I'm going to actually raise these kids? Fuck that. I'm just going to take them and go to the next planet and go to the next planet, etc. Yeah, so very Zeus of him. I felt like they could have leaned more into the Kid Rock element, because to me he just looked like Zeus.
Yeah, like if he had like a dumb goatee and a hat or something like that.
Yeah, totally. Totally. All right. Ready, guys, to go into some voicemails?
Yeah, let's get those voicemails.
All right. So send us a voicemail at 213-534-8807. We got a lot of good ones this week. We're not going to be able to play them all, but we got one from Jason about the Futurama reference that we did not catch on last week. So let's hear from Jason.
Hey, Wisecrack. This is Jason calling in about the most recent Squanch episode. So you guys specifically were wondering what the Futurama episode that they referenced in the Rick and Morty episode was, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of calls about this, but it's the series finale when Professor Farnsworth invents a device that's slightly different, but more or less the same, where it lets you jump back 10 seconds, and Fry uses it to kind of manipulate his world and do all kinds of debauchery, but then it kind of ruins his proposal to Leela, and he ends up freezing time altogether. Anyways, yeah, just thought I'd throw that out there and let you guys know that was the episode they're talking about. Love the show. Keep it up. Bye.
Nice.
Thanks for catching us on that, Jason. Have either of you guys seen that episode?
I think I have. At one point, I watched all Futurama, but I was probably playing Civilization like to the side and missed a lot of it.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually seen that one.
Yeah.
But thank you for catching that for us, Jason. This next one we got is from Brent.
Hey, Wisecrack. This is Brent from Ohio. Just wanted to ask a question on, you guys were talking about Jessica and how that would be a lost trope, but maybe do you think that with that whole idea of maybe there's a Rick and Morty showdown brewing at the end of the season, that she'll be the catalyst for that? Keep doing great work. Love the show.
What do you guys think? I mean, as far as my thesis that the season will end on some sort of, not necessarily a breakup between Rick and Morty, but just some sort of eruption in their relationship, or at least that will be the conflict of an episode that might get, that might tie up nicely by the end. We certainly saw no hint of that this week. But what do you guys think about Jessica maybe being the subject of it?
And wait, how many more episodes do we have for this half season?
One more.
I don't know. There's certainly nothing that's been set up to indicate that. So I'm going to go with probably not.
Well, when I say set up, I just mean that in general, this whole season, Morty has been a little bit more assertive in his annoyances with Rick. I think we can agree on that.
Yes, yeah.
So I was just thinking that maybe by the end of the season, that will all accumulate into some kind of eruption. If they want to do some sort of like soft serialized ending, like really soft.
Right, yeah. And then the added component is, do we think Jessica will be involved in that eruption, right? I know what you're asking.
Yeah, I don't really see that.
Yeah.
Because I mean the obvious thing you'd be thinking of is like, does Rick take an interest in her? I don't think Rick has any interest in any worldly humans. I mean, he fucks planets for God's sakes. But it could be something along the lines of Morty getting mad that Rick is constantly thwarting his attempts at wooing Jessica. I don't know. It's a possibility.
All right, I'm gonna do my just throwing spaghetti against the wall prediction here, and we'll see if I'm right next week. And that is, I think that there's gonna be since in my opinion, Morty's kind of been the cynical mouthpiece for the toxic fans this season. And that's kind of how they used him as, and him getting fed up with Rick more and more. What if they bring Evil Morty, and they have a big Evil Morty episode next time, and it's Evil Morty versus Rick, and then Evil Morty is kind of the ultimate foe of Rick, and they have their big showdown.
I think it'd be funny if it was like, we're not fucking with Evil Morty. But
Or,
like,
yeah,
that wasn't canon either. So
They make it a big self-aware moment. Like, everyone wants Rick fucking Evil Morty to come back, and then they make that a part of the story or something.
I was just going to say, it seems like they've gone out of their way to almost say that here are the things you guys care about that we don't and we're not going to lean into, but then for them to all of a sudden give it to them, I don't know, it might be a weird flex, but I guess it wouldn't surprise me for them to do something weird like that.
Well, that's my hypothesis. We'll see in a week.
Okay. My hypothesis is that there's going to be some sort of eruption in the relationship between Rick and Morty that will probably get resolved by the end of the episode. Ryan thinks Evil Morty's coming back. What do you think, Alec?
I think Summer's friend is going to fuck Jerry, and it's going to cause a big shit show in the family and lead to a showdown between Jerry, Summer's friend, and Morty and Rick.
So you think we're going to get an American Beauty episode to finalize the season?
What would that be? Would that be called like American Morty, or would that be called?
It'd be called
a Morty.
Yeah.
A Morty can.
Yeah. A Morty can Ricky.
Yeah,
something like that. All right, we got. So speaking of this South Park reference that we are unsure of, we got one from. Well, we've got a call from Jeff speaking about Cannibal the Musical, who seems to disagree with us. So let's hear from Jeff.
The Cannibal the Musical reference was absolutely what was going on, and I was hoping for more of it. As soon as I saw them eating their shoes, that's where the scene in Cannibal, where the butcher suggested they eat their shoes, but then were disappointed that the shoes were vegan. And then, keep in mind, in Cannibal the Musical, Kyle's character was Matt Stone, and he had that hat in the movie. And one of the gags was when he took off that hat, a big, bushy ginger head of hair came out from under it, just like Kyle. So the reason Cartman's not in there is because perhaps the other characters' inceptions were somewhat based on what was going on in Cannibal, but Cartman wasn't a character. Anyway, love the podcast, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
I want to watch Cannibal the Musical. Thank you. And I just want to say that this person disagrees with you, Jared, not with me and Ryan.
Oh, well, Ryan was saying that it was a different... What was the movie you said in the comments? We were saying
it's certainly Alive. It's definitely that.
Yeah.
But you guys think it's also Alive in South Park.
Maybe.
No, I don't think it's a Cannibal the Musical reference. I think that's a coincidence. I mean, the whole shoe eating thing. I haven't seen that movie in years. I do remember the song "It's a Spadoinkle Day," but other than that, I don't remember the shoe part explicitly. But there might be something to what Jeff is saying.
I agree with Jeff. Whatever Jeff said, I agree with him.
Okay. So last week when Alec was talking about evolutionary psychology, Ryan said, "Oh boy, we're going to get some emails about that."
We didn't get any. I didn't see any angry email. I don't know about this voicemail.
All right. Well, we got a voicemail from another Jeff about Primordius. Let's hear from Jeff.
Hey, Squanchers. This is Jeff. I'm reaching all the way back to the Primordius episode, where we had a bit of a kerfuffle about the topic of evolutionary psychology. I wanted to weigh in because I'm an evolutionary psychologist. I got my PhD at Santa Barbara, just up the road. And I think that when the topic turned to people excusing or somehow justifying specifically rape, you're probably referring to Palmer and Thornhill's book, The Natural History of Rape. I know Randy Thornhill. I know I've heard him talk about this several times. And the idea is that, sure, the field does have more than their fair share of, as you said, shitheads. I won't deny that. But the people who are doing the science well and who are doing science carefully are very careful about avoiding the appeal to nature. You call it the naturalistic fallacy, but it's the logical fallacy that if something is natural, it's therefore good or justifiable. The only people who are trying to justify rape with evolutionary psychology are, in fact, committing that appeals to nature, logical fallacy, and the people who are doing well in the field are not, including Palmer and Thornhill. So keep on keeping on, guys. Love the show. Love hearing about it. Love giving the chance to give you a call and give you feedback. And I'm looking forward to the next episode.
That's a dope voicemail.
What do you have to say, Alec?
I don't think I'm...
asshole.
No, I just said there's a lot of shitheads. He even said
kidding.
there's a lot of shitheads.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement here.
Yeah, although I am glad, and there was a couple other people asking questions because I was kind of pulling back from a thing I read years ago. And I did track it down to people talking about that book, but it's not the authors of the book who defend it. It's usually like shitheads on the internet will like refer to that book and be like, see, it's natural.
But not having actually read it. Or at least comprehended it.
I don't know. Well, yeah, I don't know. But I think to our caller's point, there are the good ones and the bad ones.
Gotcha. All right, that's all I've got for voicemails. You want to give us some emails, Alec?
Yeah. If anyone wants to email us, it's culturebinge@wisecrack.co.
No, it's not.
Oh, my God.
Different podcast, baby.
Squanch @wisecrack.co. Thank you for doing that. If anyone wants to email us, it is squanch@wisecrack.co. Anyway,
it's been a long quarantine.
What if all the emails I pulled were for Culture Binge instead?
Then it would be pretty bad if none of us noticed.
Anyway, the first email is from Dr. Froctopus BD. I have a feeling that's not his real name. Hey Squanchers, love the podcast. Was thinking about the latest episode and thought it was funny that after several seasons of Rick favorably comparing himself to a god, he gets his ass beat by knockoff Yahweh. Love that joke.
For real.
Yeah, and has to be saved by Morty and Summer. I also thought it was interesting that Rick has one of his more human moments with Beth, and with Morty and Summer too. It's kind of like in this episode, he's a decent family member, but a crappy god, which is kind of the inverse of how Rick is usually portrayed. Wubba lubba dub dub.
I want to say I got pissed off for Morty and Summer for when at the end when Rick told them that they got high and played video games.
Yeah, what a fucking narc.
What a dick, you know?
Yeah.
It's like usually he's like more. You see his assholeness in other ways, but this is just like you're just a little tattletale little bitch, you know, like little brother shit. You know, I wanted to punch
because
him in the face.
if there's one thing that Rick can't handle, it's being upstaged by Jerry.
Yeah.
And when Jerry saves his daughter's life while you're out getting your ass kicked by a god, doesn't go well.
I guess you're right. Yeah, not a good look for Rick is all I'm saying.
Yeah. All right, what else we got, Alec?
Here is an email from Gunner who says, hey, Squanch Team 6, I've been thinking about the glory that is the Vat of Acid episode and the nature of how wild time travel can be. I know that I have a laundry list of things that I would take care of experience if I had the same redo button that Morty had in this episode, as long as it was time travel and not Rick's awful dimension hopper. That being said, I and many others woefully admit that we would probably do several less than legal okay things if we got a redo and had no consequences. On to the question, if you got an endless series of redos, are there things that you would do that would be not okay in normal life? I feel like most people, given a consequence-free settings, will just go nuts doing all kinds of batshit stuff. Sad we only have 1 week left, but love these discussions. Thanks, guys.
I am going to go out and say I would not do that many evil things. You know?
You fucking liar.
I mean, okay, don't get me wrong. I would probably do a little bit of lying, cheating, and stealing, you know, because some white-collar crime, basically.
Yeah, the best kind of crime.
I still feel like if I'm murdering you if I'm just going up and shooting an innocent person in the head, it still happens in that reality for that day, at least.
But gets erased.
Yeah, but even for that moment, even for the time from when you did it till it gets erased, I still feel like you've kind of committed the act. I don't know. It gets into the philosophical.
You still kind of have to live with it.
Right. So yeah, I'd be going to Vegas every day. I'd just hang out there. I'd become a billionaire, and then I'd just live pretty, you know? Like, it'd be great. I'm not going to be killing people, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I also feel like the momentary like sadness or whatever, like I feel like killing someone in the act can't really be that great, you know, like they're gonna be screaming. I don't want to hear that, like even if I undo it. Yeah,
it's like, come on. Right.
Well, I have a really lame answer and then a less lame answer, which is similar to Ryan's. My really lame answer is so whenever we put out a video, we like really just pull our hair out about like what the thumbnail should be, what the title should be, because it's all about click-through rate, and the algorithm, if it has a high click-through rate, will serve it to more people, and that's more or less how like Wisecrack like can or can't survive, whatever. And I would just go back if we did the wrong thumbnail and be like, okay, no, we're going to change the thumbnail of this and title until we got it right. That's my lame answer.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty lame answer.
My better answer would be like playing the stock market, like shorting all that stuff. And then like I feel like once you become a billionaire, that's where you have the real power. I would like destroy Jeff Bezos somehow financially. And then, I don't know, like give all the money away and then do it again. I don't know. Like, you know, when you can undo the buying or selling of a stock, you get really rich really fast, or Vegas. But you'd probably get kicked out after a certain point in Vegas.
I do like a lot of big stunt. Well, yeah, but you have the reset. They've never seen you before.
Well, yeah, but you have to like win, keep the money, save, do another bet. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
it seems like the conclusion is that use the power to get money, and then once you have money, the other power is just like pales in comparison.
Yeah,
fuck it.
Pretty much, dude. But also, you can do a bunch of really fun, like ultra dangerous things that you would never want to do in real life too, you know, or things that are like humiliating. Like, you know, I'd go streaking at the Super Bowl, for instance, at halftime, and then get arrested, have my life ruined, and then I'd just reset, and then there you go. You know?
I think Alec and I would just save state right before we enter a buffet, and then just get completely disgusting at the buffet, and then reload state.
Okay.
And then maybe go get a salad.
And then do it again.
I love this answer, Jared. I'm going to tweak it a little bit, though. I would go into, like, you know, I look at a menu and I have a lot of anxiety about picking the right thing. I would just eat every dish in the restaurant. I would eat a dish, reset, eat another dish, reset, until I've eaten everything on the menu. I would use my powers to get rich and eat all of the food.
You know, I bet you even if you were hungry at the time, each time you reset the state, I think you'd still get sick of the food after having eaten meal after meal after meal. Even if you're hungry after each one, I don't know. That's just my hypothesis.
Yeah. After 1,000 years of that or so, you probably get sick of it. You're right.
Yeah, I don't want 1,000 years. I just want, you know, like a regular human amount.
Yeah. All right, we got time for maybe one more.
Sure.
Sure.
All right, let's do, here's an email from Paul. Hello, dear Squanchers. A thought that struck me when watching the Vat of Acid episode was, how can the smartest man in the universe be so stupid? For a man who can invent and engineer literally anything conceivable, Rick seems completely incapable of self-reflection. Not only does he refuse to consider his Vat of Acid idea was bad, he uses cheap rhetorical tricks and logical fallacies to defend himself. He implies that if he can give an example of a bad idea Morty had, that must mean that all of Morty's ideas are bad, and conversely, an example of his good idea, like Pickle Rick, must imply all of Rick's ideas are good. Simultaneously, he diverges the conversation away from its subject and fails to give any argument on why he thinks the Vat of Acid was a good idea. In the era of social media bubbles and polarization, I do wonder if it's maybe time to retire the TV and movie trope that highly intelligent people are arrogant and self-confident. Intuitively, it seems to me intelligence must correlate with humility and open-mindedness, and it's the dumb people who are the most impervious to accepting new facts and changing their opinions.
I think it's because Rick is the smartest person alive, but he's so shitty with dealing with other inferior people, like, and he's so petty, like kind of we were talking about before, that yeah, he's a narcissist and an egoist, and so all that kind of, he doesn't really know how to relate and explain his point of view to other people a lot. Even though I do kind of agree with the emailer that he's so smart, there's a version of him that it seems like should be so self-aware because he's so smart that he knows how to do all these things, but also there's the element of his character where he's so I guess jaded by his intelligence and how much he knows more than everyone else that just makes him to where he doesn't give a fuck, and he's lost all ability to really care to relate to other people on that kind of human level or explain himself. I don't know. What do you think?
I think this also has to do with there are different kinds of intelligences, even if we're going to say that Rick is the smartest man alive. I mean, he's the smartest man alive in the field of science, but I think I mean, if you were to say that Rick gives a shit about formal logic or something like that, I would highly doubt that. I mean, there are certain disciplines of thought that I can see Rick just not giving two shits about.
Yeah.
Like, certainly Rick doesn't give a shit about theology, for example.
Yeah.
But he understands it very well.
I think even if
smart.
Rick isn't...
I doubt it. I mean, I think that he just completely discards it as a worthwhile train of thought and just focuses on science.
See, I feel like he doesn't discard it. It's like, to me, he knows so much about everything that then he can discard it because he's boiled it down to its essence because he's so smart, unless that he just has a surface look at it and then discards it, you know?
See, I think he's got a little bit of the Neil deGrasse Tyson thing going on, where he just thinks that science is the only thing worthwhile and philosophy is stupid.
Which is why Neil deGrasse Tyson is dumb. I mean, he's smart, but also he's dumb. I don't mean to. I mean, the dude knows his astrophysics or whatever. I don't know what the field is, but the point is, I think there's three things. One, I think even if he's not trained in formal logic, he knows it's a cheap rhetorical trick. But I think that's the point. Is like he's just being manipulative. I also think if you're really the quote unquote smartest person on, you could like cure your own narcissism maybe, but also kind of to what you're saying, like I think the model of like universal smart like I think it's a myth. I think it's fine on TV in this context because it's just funny and like he's a sad sack that you don't want to emulate. But yeah, like first of all, most intelligent people are incredibly like humble and don't brag about how they're so fucking smart. And when people are bragging about how they're so smart, they're usually a bunch of dumbasses. That's like a life lesson that I think everyone should know.
What about the people who brag they're smart who actually are smart, like a Rick?
No, I feel like it's rare. I mean, like it's the Dunning-Kruger. Right. It's the Dunning-Kruger. Like the other side of the Dunning-Kruger effect is if you're like, how well would you think you're going to perform at this math test and you're a mathematician? You're going to be like, I think I'll do okay. And if you're not trained in math, you're like, I fucking know everything about math. And when you meet really smart, you know, like I know people I consider very smart, whether like in science, math, philosophy, etc. And they're all kind of like people who've studied fucking Nietzsche for like a decade are like, yeah, like, you know, I mean, I've read a lot, like I have a pretty good grasp on it. They're not like, I am... Very rarely, unless they've been given like some actual award, are they like, I'm the foremost expert on Nietzsche. I mean, Michael Burns at one point was like the hot shit in like Kierkegaard, but he just gets like weird and embarrassed when you like talk about his Kierkegaard expertise.
But that's what makes Rick such an enigma, you know? He's a one-of-a-kind dude. You know?
No, because whenever you see someone arguing about being an expert something on Reddit, that person's not an expert and they're a fucking dumbass. And I think, so like, again, it's
Rick is demonstrably an expert at everything, all right?
He's fake.
Well, the one thing I will say about Rick that I found interesting is that in the last episode, in the Vat of Acid episode, there's a part where Morty says, I got to study for my English exam. And Rick says, English, that's the language that you speak. How stupid can you be? Now, obviously, I think he's being sarcastic, but then at the end of the episode, we have, which Supreme Court Justice is it? Sotomayor? She quotes The Merchant of Venice, the Shakespeare play, right. And Rick actually catches on to it. So I thought that was an interesting character moment for Rick, because I would have guessed up until that point that he didn't really care that much for literature, but turns out I'm wrong.
Dude, he's read everything. He's memorized it. He's a speed reader. He has photographic memorized and absorbed every piece of literature, and he just doesn't give a fuck, you know? He's that smart.
But did he sit down and did he read each book, or did he just create some sort of ray gun that just, like, put the books in his mind?
What's the difference, Jared? What is the difference between those two?
The Matrix. Teach me how to fly a helicopter.
Yeah. I know Kung Fu.
I know Kung Fu. All right, well, on that note, I think we're going to close it off for today. We'll be back next week with the final episode, Season 4, Episode 10 of Rick and Morty. But before we go, where can we find you guys on the internet, Ryan?
At Ryan's Game Show on Twitter. You can find me talking about random shit there. Or Ryan's Game Show and Ryan's Shorts on YouTube. Put out stuff there pretty frequently. I love you.
Pretty darn frequently. And Alec?
I'm on Twitter at Wisecrack Alec. It's not as good as Ryan's Game Show or Ryan's Shorts.
It is. No, yes, it is. Subscribe.
All right. Well, then we'll catch you guys next week for the season finale of season 4. Finally. Until next time, peace, guys.
Wubba wubba dub dub from Hollywood, California!